think we all know it's the elephant in the room. It's that Atlas Intel +9 poll. Now, I talked a little bit about it Friday, but I had nice a nice tweet storm from myself over the weekend, thinking a lot about the ramifications of that poll and what it means for the industry. And I don't think the answer is good. I really don't. And it's changed my opinions about the industry as well. What I've been saying is that you can't trust the mainstream media pollsters. You just don't know. They're beholden to corporate interests. They hide in their ivory tower. They don't address the obvious fallacies that we see over and over again in their own numbers. But it's supposed to be different if you're an independent pollster. I'm not hiding. I'm trying to give you the honest truth about my opinions of what the political context is based on numbers I produce. And if my numbers that I produce are inexplicable, then I feel that I owe it to you to do my best to try to explain them instead of just dismissing, because that's the same thing that the mainstream media pollsters do. And so for a very long time, I haven't really said a word about Atlas Intel. They do really well, in November. They do a good job. And listen, it's good to have comrades in arms against all of the lying that goes on in the industry. It's nice to be the only one, not be the only one out there that's putting out little red circles into the Real Clear Politics aggregate like we were this fall. And we put Democrats up, obviously. I just put out a Democrat +1 generic ballot. It's not like, it's just good to look at the numbers. And when you see 20 different pollsters at like Harris +5, and it isn't just Rasmussen that says Trump +2, it's nice. But then all of a sudden it's Democrat +9, and it makes no sense. It just absolutely makes no sense. And then the explanations aren't adequate. I don't think they were. They just were not.
After all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within.
Hold up. You're telling me after April, after all that market chaos, after Liberation Day and that psychological operation about Trump's 100 days and all that crap about the tariffs, the Republicans are still +8. Just like my polls show that Donald Trump still does pretty good, mid-40s, excellent or good on the issue of the economy. It's probably his worst issue, but it's better than any issue that Joe Biden pulled on ever. So these numbers are internally consistent. What you'll notice is that the Republicans haven't really lost a lot since 2023. They haven't. And if these numbers moderated, which it could just be noise, and this is the CNN pollster too, and they are not the best, and they certainly do not favor Republicans. But if these numbers did moderate, it's because Joe Biden's not in office anymore. Period. People who were super mad and responding to polls probably aren't right now.
Within that range, still within that margin of error, +8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears,
after everything we did to try to get you to be ahead? How are you still failing, Democrats? How are you that bad? I did like all of these weekly bits trying to throw the Republicans under the bus, and you're still sucking. That's what I'm reading.
The market's been doing all of this after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans.
The stock market.
Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy. Are you kidding me? If it was just this one.
The economy is prices and jobs, and we all know that, by the way.
CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024,
Reuters Ipsos numbers, who probably have Trump like underwater 15 or 20 on favorability right now, I guarantee you.
Just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points. Now Republicans have a 12-point advantage when it comes to the party with a better economic plan. And again, this is after months of supposed economic uncertainty in which the stock market's been going bonkers, in which the tariff war.
The stock market. Harriet's bosses are super upset about the stock market and probably the tariffs and the pendulum swinging back on globalization, all of their angry advertisers. I'm sure that that has something to do. Now, listen, this is party with a better economic plan. That's a little bit different than party favorability. It's a little bit different than rate Trump on the economy, or which party do you trust most on the issue of the economy. But directionally, we're looking at apples to apples here. And both of these pretty horrible pollsters show a really strong lead among Republicans. But what's important to note, the numbers have not changed. They are flat.
Wars that Americans are against have been going on. And yet, despite all of that, the Democrats are down by 12 points on the economy. This speaks to Democratic problems on the economy better than basically anything that you could possibly look at. The Republicans still hold an advantage on the all-important key issue of the day, which is the party of the middle class. Has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989 when Democrats had a 23-point advantage.
This is what happens. This is your party on luxury beliefs. This is what happens when you stoke the fans of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, when you create hoaxes like threat to democracy, when you appeal to people's emotions. You're going to get the people who can afford to live by their emotions, and that has to be the wealthy.
2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022, where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied.
That's crazy. Now, also what they leave out, the Clinton administration was probably really great for Democrats in the middle class, but it's back down to plus 17 after 2016 because Obama, the socialist president, was not good for the middle class. He was literally, I guess, just a puppet of the deep state oligarchy with the interests of big business in mind. Moral hazard. Taxpayer Joe's six-pack bailing out the major banking corporations.
I think speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
Now, compare and contrast that with this headline. I knew this was coming. The second Atlas put out a +9. They should have known this. This was literally like the Ann Seltzer poll. That's what this is so critical. J. Ann Seltzer's poll was literally a death blow to the credibility of the political polling industry. It was used by the mainstream media to paint a false narrative of potential underrepresentation of Democrat support, breathlessly reported by Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, trending to the top of Twitter. She did an interview about it, even telling people, implying that there was hope because the Democrats needed hope. In my opinion, it was potentially, could be accused to, perceived to be, whatever word you want to use, election interference. That poll was seen by millions and millions of people who don't know anything about polls, and all they knew was, oh my Lord, Kamala Harris is up in a red state. And of course, 17 points off. We all know it. We all know that press junket she did afterwards, trying to explain how she missed poorly. But in my opinion, this poll is as bad, if not worse. And I actually think worse. This is largely by some, mostly themselves, but Nate Silver likes to puff these guys up as well for whatever reason. Largely perceived by many to be the most accurate pollster. They use that phrase a lot on Fox too. Every time I hear that word, it feels like a psychological operation to me. I don't want you to call me the most accurate pollster. I don't. High integrity, honest, that's good. Trying to do my best, which means if I miss, it's not because I sold out. It's because I tried hard and did bad, and I feel bad about it, and I'll explain it to you, okay? Dropping a Democrat +9 right before the summer, after all of this chaos, when all of the numbers look totally different. Look at that, Harry, and narrative about imploding Democrat support, a complete loss of their voting base. And then you drop a Democrat +9 with really no explanation whatsoever, on top of suspicions that the poll was brigaded in Democrat Discord servers. I wonder which Discord server. I wonder what the little interest there, whatever. Okay. So Democrat +9 gets dropped, and immediately, I predicted it, I said it was going to fuel headlines like this. Trump's approval rating hits second term low. with the most accurate pollster. President Trump's approval rating has fallen to a new low, according to the nation's most accurate pollster. According to that one little infographic that they put out, like the ink had been dry on the 2024 election for like 5 hours by the time that Atlas Intel came out with that little infographic, putting them in the number 1 spot and us number 2. Okay. It was just final calls. I think I beat them with average polling, but whatever. The latest Atlas Intel survey conducted between May 21st and 27 among 3,469 adults shows that Trump's approval rating has fallen to 45%, 54% disapprove. Now, my numbers swung around a bit. I think I had Trump underwater 6 for a day or two. The average has been about Trump +1, probably, maybe Trump +2. I think it's at like 4 or 5 right now. He's doing really well over the same period that they polled here. So that means essentially he's polling like 10 to 15 points to the left of me. But here's the rub. In the fall, he was exactly the same. So how come his poll moved 10 to 15 points to the left? That's a lot. That's a lot of movement. That's the lowest rating of his second term so far. In a previous Atlas Intel poll, his approval ranged between 46 and 50%, and his disapproval range between whatever. Why it matters. Atlas Intel was ranked the most accurate polling company of the 2024 election by survey veteran Nate Silver. You know how much this must eat him up that they can't refer to 538 anymore because it's completely gone, stripped from the internet like a bad dream, ephemeral, dissipating into the dustbin of history. Now they have to refer to a glorified non-polling ex-sports handicapper newsletter writer. This is basically the equivalent of Statistics Keith Olbermann is what he's referring to here. Previously named the most accurate pollster of the 2020 election as well. Recent surveys had shown Trump's approval rating creeping back up after a period of decline following the introduction of his Liberation Day tariffs. Like whatever. Trump's declining approval rating comes as the number of Americans who rate his overall performance as good or excellent dropped from 46% in February to just 39%. Does it talk about the generic ballot in here? No, it doesn't. Again, I don't think the approval rating matters that much. I really don't. But it's those generic ballot results. This is a high enough number, Democrat +9, that there should be people on the Democrat media breathlessly reporting an impending blue wave in 2026. That's what they want. They want to gain the upper ground and be perceived as winners again. And as you can see from CNN, Harry Enton quoting CNN polls, the numbers show there's literally zero chance for that. And where does it come from? Where does the chance for the Democrats come from? Atlas Intel. Independent pollster, Atlas Intel, polling from Brazil, because they say the American pollsters are so bad. Look at this. Others have shown the same trend, a collapse in Trump approval. The latest Insider Advantage poll conducted May 17th through 19th gave Trump a net approval rating of +11 points. +11 points. That's strong. Yeah, here we are, 53 to 46 at the same time that Atlas Intel was underwater 9. Look at some of these other people. YouGov economists, we know they suck, underwater 8. Morning Consult, though, only 2. Again, YouGov, massively underwater, same panel. McLaughlin, up a lot. RMG, tied. Kind of all over the place. Insider Advantage, up a lot. Reuters Ipsos, upside down. So it's these big independent like panels. Like that's the problem, the proprietary panels. So we'll look at this again quickly because I don't want to go through it again. I didn't really get to go through the whole thing, but it's not good TV to go through like a 50-page PowerPoint presentation. But, people have talked about the weighting. We're not going to get into that. Actually, you know what? We're not going to do this again. I mean, I was tweeting all the things out that I found egregious about it. But basically, this is insane. Trump is not up on a single issue, not a single policy proposal that Trump ran on. Not a one. His best one, he's underwater 46 to 53. 7 points. He does not do better than a -7 on any issue, even though he won the national popular vote. And most pollsters have him up in approval rating. I think, I don't know, the index is probably like underwater 2 points right now. But we all know Real Clear Politics is about 2 points to left. So it's all crap, complete crap. I don't know what the real generic ballot is right now. It's probably Republican +1, but it is not Democrat +9. 10 points to the left. We'll get a feel for how big of a miss that is. The breakout sessions at the AAPOR conference didn't seem to help the Atlas methodology. Now, again, I was classy. I didn't address them. I just couldn't let it go. It makes us look bad. I'm trying to please the industry. When an independent pollster can all of a sudden throw out numbers like this without an explanation, tarnishes us. It makes us look bad. And what were my attacks? I didn't accuse him anything. I just made some jokes and said that his poll was terrible, and in many, many different ways. Democrat +9, but Trump is down almost 30 points with women in the poll, all when other pollsters show Trump rebounding. I normally keep my mouth closed, but this is J. Ann Seltzer level. The Atlas poll has Democrats up 9 points. Also important to know that in the poll, AOC is 9 points more popular than ending DEI in the government. You got to be kidding me. National numbers don't move that much. They don't. They just don't. If the Atlas poll is right, then AOC is probably winning 2028. Yeah, she had a higher favorability than Trump, and a Democrat +9. It means the Democrats are going to overperform and sweep. Probably means AOC is going to win. Did G. Elliott Morris give advice to Atlas at the AAPOR conference? That's the only explanation how you could be this bad. You're, a Trump +2 pollster, and all of a sudden you become Democrat +9. Well, it's because you've been talking to a Democrat +16 pollster. That's probably what happened. Conservative Fox News hosts usually cite Atlas, talking about you, Jesse Waters, because they don't like citing their own bad pollster. That's correct. But Atlas is now quite a bit further left than Fox's own pollster. Awkward. Is Maddow leading with the Atlas 10+9 tonight? I can't wait to see that smarmy grin. I'm sorry, I had a lot of fun with this, but there was just so much. How can Republicans have a double-digit collapse when Trump is minting right direction records left and right? And I even made a meme. Basically, Atlas, I for one welcome our new socialist overlords. Like this is what this poll means. It even had Buttigieg as the front runner for Democrats. Not Kamala Harris, not AOC, not Gavin Newsom, not Michelle Obama, not any of these people. Buttigieg. The only explanation I can come up with why he does the best, it was like 31 points to, I think the next highest was in the 20s. The way Buttigieg maybe did that well is that maybe the Discord server that the survey link got distributed to was a homosexual form. I don't know. Like, that's the only thing I can come up with that makes sense. With the sample sizes involved, the Atlas poll is less statistically believable than the J. Ann Seltzer poll. And it is true. It is. We'll look at that. Oh, I had so much fun. And then I asked if Nate Silver was out there praising it. No, actually, Nate Silver was not out there praising it. He has not said a word. And what's fascinating is that Atlas would have used 538 to puff their own accuracy because they do very well. For some reason, they get a pass. They poll pretty kindly to Trump in aggregate. And for some reason, 538 and Nate Silver do not downrank them, but they'll put us all the way at the bottom. They'll put poor Trafalgar at 282. They'll totally kick Rich out of it. And no, he's still in there. I got kicked out of it. But like, whatever, that's my point, is that I poll more than him, the same as him, and he's the best and we're the worst. And all of a sudden they put out a Democrat +9. Make it make sense, folks. Post what you're thinking in the comments and hit the like button, because this is wild. This is going to change the industry. It's almost like they destroyed their own credibility. Bookmark this. The Atlas Dem +9 generic ballot is going to act like a magnet, pulling every high-quality pollster to the left. Then the media is going to hammer how unpopular Republicans are all summer. I think that's the game, but we do have one pollster, the economist YouGov, who failed to take the bait. They only had Democrats +2, even though that +9 was out there. But look at how underwater the economist YouGov had Trump. I think they had him underwater like 10 or 15 points too. And they only have Democrats up 2 in the generic ballot. Make that make sense. It does not make sense. I wake up, there's another psyop. Yep, cope. I just kept going. But there was some really interesting stuff I calculated. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it sure seems like this Atlas generic ballot poll is acting like a Democrat anti-demoralization op. Yeah. And there was all these bots all of a sudden that just came out of nowhere. Atlas is only a thing because people on the right thought it gave Republicans a chance, in my opinion. They seem to have thrown that out today. Maybe it was a business decision, or I don't know. I don't know what it is. Where was the one about four-leaf clovers? That's what I want to look at. I got off on a little tangent there talking about dating and that horrible judge that got arrested and stuff like that. You're never going to see me personally out there scrambling to claim the most accurate moniker. In my opinion, it's only used by the media to manipulate people. Because any one of us could lose our integrity at any point in time. And they drove the Real Clear Politics aggregate from like 1.7 to 2.4 with one poll. Really crazy. Really, really big. And by the way, shout out to Rich. I think his Republicans +2 is the right number here. I don't think it's changed. Republicans were +2 in 22. They're +3 in 24. They'll probably go back to +2. I think, honestly. I think I just got a noisy poll last Friday. Well, whatever. I mean, we could. Here's what I wanted to talk about. So he actually responded to this. So we're going to take a look at his tweets. But I want to convey how statistically unlikely this is. Okay. And this is just like, this isn't the correct statistical way to do it. I'm not going to sit here and calculate standard deviations and use like overlapping two-tail t-tests and all this other garbage, right? But it's pretty fair to look at this from the perspective of how big was the miss outside of the margin of error. Okay. And so let's just assume that the Republican +1 generic ballot is the truth. Maybe it's +2, but let's just say +1. That means that Atlas was 10 points to the left, okay? It was a very large poll. Central limit theorem, the larger the sample, the smaller the normal distribution. Okay, what we're looking at is the normal distribution. If you take something with, unskewed probability, like flipping a coin, statistically, it's going to look like this over time. If the mean is 0, 50% of the time, the probability is the area under the curve. 50% of the time, it's going to be on one tail. 50% of the time, it's going to be on the other tail. And if you look here at this like 2 standard deviations at 1.96, Z-stat, that's 95% area under the total curve, okay? That's what we talk about when a margin of error. So basically between here and here is 95%. It means 95% of the time the poll is going to be in that area. But every once in a while, it's going to be out in this tail somewhere. It could be out in this tail like way the hell out here. It really could. But the farther you go away, the less statistically likely it is, okay? And so if a 95% probability corresponds to a z-score of 1.996, right? Okay. Let's just look at it this way. 10-point miss divided by the margin of error, 1.65 for 3,500. That's like a 6x. 6 times outside. 6 times the margin of error of a miss, okay? Well, so the margin of error is a z-score of 1.96. So 6 times 1.96 is 12, a z-score of 12. So let's just put that in, shall we? A z-score of 12 means that it would be likely 1.5 times 10 to the negative 34th. If the true answer is really r plus 1, and Atlas happened to be polling on average an r plus 1 because they're accurate, the odds that they get an outlier, roughly speaking, maybe it's plus or minus a couple of Fermis, right? It's really statistically unlikely. Now, the J.N. Seltzer poll was a bigger miss, 17 points, okay? 3.4% margin of error. So 17 points divided by 3.4, that's only a 5x margin of error miss. So 5 times 2 roughly is a z-score of 10. So we're talking about, 10 orders of magnitude. And here's what's crazy. Atlas pulled out a D plus 7 the month prior. The odds of getting 2 outliers of that size sequentially, like we're getting close to a negative Google here, getting really, I mean, obviously it's not statistics. Their sample is just way too left. They're collecting too many Democrats. It wasn't luck. It literally is a problem with their methodology. And I hate to use the M word, the methodology word, but they're not talking about fixing it. That's what's crazy. So he came out and he defended this. He said basically, no, it wasn't brigaded. We have ways to correct for that. And maybe they do. And maybe it wasn't brigaded, or maybe it was brigaded and he just didn't want to miss it. But he says we never retracted a poll because, we believe the stuff we put out. Okay, so you're doubling down on this D plus 9. All he had to do was say, well, it felt a little weird. And everybody would have been like, okay, dismiss it because it's an outlier. But he wouldn't. He said, we've never retracted a poll. And then he spent the whole weekend bragging about how accurate he was. Again, this focus on accuracy and not honesty or understanding. There wasn't a really good explanation. There just wasn't. He was talking about how Donald Trump made all these populist promises, just like Lula did, made progressive promises, and they're both collapsing in support. He's picking up a signal that nobody else in the industry is picking up. So he defended that. And then after about 12 hours of me hammering on him, and I really hammered. I only showed you about a third of what I put out there. He says this is to so Atlas is going to poll like Rasmussen in October, but like Ipsos every other month. I mean, like, yeah, that's kind of what we saw, right? If you go from, a Trump roughly net zero favorability and a Trump plus 2 national popular vote to Democrat plus 9 on the generic ballot with Trump underwater 9 points, that's a lot more like Ipsos than it is like us. And they were just like us back in October. So I thought it was a pretty fair call out. If we were polling like Rasmussen, pay very close attention to this, we would be ranked as the 82nd US pollster and not in the first spot. Now, that's very disingenuous. Do you know where that 82% number comes from? Pretty sure it comes from Nate Silver, the clown of the industry, but he doesn't say that. His own ranking shows us 2, but he's calling us 82. Okay, that's your first tell that there's something bad going on here, okay? If we were polling like Rasmussen, we wouldn't have had Trump winning Michigan. I'm on video a week or 2 before the election saying we polled Michigan. I have Kamala Harris up 1. I think Trump's going to win, but my poll said Harris plus 1. So what did I do? Did I publish what I thought was going to be, or did I publish what my poll said? I published what my poll said. But because I thought it was going to be within the margin of error too, and guess what it was? And so he's calling me out. The very first thing he's calling me out is for my accuracy, because I didn't have all the swing states, because I got one that was like essentially, it was less than 2 points from the margin of error. It was within the margin of error. It was a good poll. It was a small poll, 700 or 800 people, and it was good within the margin of error. And he's calling me out and saying I'm inaccurate before there. The implication to me, the very subtle thing that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, is that he's implying that if I thought the result of the election was going to be different than what my polling said, I should have changed my poll. That's the first thing I get out of the first paragraph that he writes responding to me, giving a lot of valid critiques, but also some, sort of wise ass jokes like this. I mean, let's be real. I am kind of a smug jerk. Let's be real. If we were polling like Rasmussen, we wouldn't have been the most accurate pollster in 2020 and 2024, as measured by Final Call. Now, they didn't poll very much until very recently. All of a sudden, they got money and they're polling a lot more. And so basically, they just drop a few polls, drop a few national polls, do a couple of state sets, not even starting till like mid or late September. And half of their state sets were like between October 29th and Election Day or something ridiculous like that. I think they were 10/29, 11/2, and 11/4. They dropped half of their polling after half of the country had already voted. And the very final day, once they were finally happy with exactly what their numbers looked like, because in my opinion, what he's implying here is that potentially he's comfortable with the idea of people changing their results. That's just what I feel. I don't know. That's my opinion. And all of a sudden they're polling more. And people said, well, they signed a deal with Bloomberg. And it's true. They did sign a deal with Bloomberg. Just in October, a big deal with Bloomberg. They're probably getting a lot of money. They're doing like the LATAM Pulse. I responded to this. We had Michigan within the margin of error. You seem to be implying I shouldn't have changed my numbers so the sign was I should have changed my numbers so that the sign was correct. Pretty transparent. Did he respond to that? I don't think he did. Nope, of course not. Of course not. What is this other stuff? If we were like Rasmussen, we would be hurting whenever a better result for Trump is released by another pollster. That's an accusation of hurting. But I put out more polling than anybody else. I had Donald Trump winning literally every poll since September of 2021. And I'm the one that's hurting. I put out 2.5 years of polling that said Trump was going to win before these guys dropped a single matchup. If we were like Rasmussen, we would be systematically biased. My state polls were like Harris, on average, Harris plus 0.8. If we were like Rasmussen, we were too far left in 2020. If we were like Rasmussen, we would go on a tantrum whenever someone disagreed with our analysis. I disagree with lying. And I disagree with disingenuousness. And I disagree with psychological operations. And even if you're not lying, with a nod and a wink, if you play into something that's going to affect politics in America, I'm going to call you out because I think it's a bad poll. And a lot of people fall for that most accurate shtick that this guy pounds on about. Now, I mean, the good news is that he was getting savaged in the replies. I think this was like a mask off moment. You don't just drop a Democrat +9 and walk away from it. You just don't. And so I really think he undermined his business. Like there's just so much that shows that this is garbage. Like, look at this. Gallup, okay, we can quibble about like the precision, how, close within a percent or two they're going to be. These numbers go back a long time. They're directionally correct. I trust these numbers. I look at their party ID numbers sometimes. And this is Democrat and Republican party favorability. And you can see that they've both not been doing great for sure. But they have November 6th here, 2024. The Democrats crashed to 38%. That's the lowest they've ever been, except for, when was this? 2014. It's basically the implosion of the Obama administration. But here's the thing. If you look back at these elections, at the congressional, House, national popular vote margin, the last time it was as big as Democrat +9 was basically 2028, the 2028 election. But look at what we see here. Back in 2028, Republican favorability was roughly around 40%. Democrat favorability was in the mid 50s. So Democrats had like in the teens a favorability advantage on the Republicans. And that aligned with the 9 point, 10 point, whatever it was. I think it was closer to 10. Do they have an advantage now? They have a disadvantage. Harriet's on TV saying the Democrats are like the worst they've ever been. We know they have, in some polls, favorability ratings in the high 20s or low 30s. Ours are 44%. So how about that systematic right-wing bias we have? Andre didn't say anything about our Biden approval rating at all, I noticed. And so it doesn't make sense. Like, this is one more thing that proves the Democrats are not up 9. Maybe they're just going to try and fundraise off it. I really don't know. And then there's just like stories like this popping up everywhere. Number of registered Democrats in Florida falls to record low. It's other states as well. Pennsylvania, Republicans are picking up. The entire country's moving like 6 points to the right. Places like New Jersey are making registration. It's just crazy. No explanation, essentially no explanation. Now, he did a stream. I'm not going to listen to that. Maybe somebody else listened to the stream. I don't know. It's sad. It really is sad. I didn't want this to be the case. Now, there is a predicate for a period in time when the nation moved massively in one direction. Now, people might say, oh, Newt Gingrich and the contract on America and all that stuff. And that's, probably right. But there was one more recently. Okay? There was one more recently. And when was it? In 2021. Okay? Joe Biden won the national popular vote, knock on wood, with a 4% lead. And then, merely a year later, in our very first 2024 matchup, he was underwater, I think, 10 or 11 points on Donald Trump. So that's like, call it a 15-point drop. Now, did our poll have a response bias? I'm almost certain. People were really mad. Very, very mad. But it was a real move. Republicans, I forget what the House popular vote was in 2020. Maybe it was like 5 or something. I don't know. Probably close to 4. And then Republicans won by 2 in 22. I think it would have been more if it hadn't been for Roe v. Wade and a lot of other stuff that was going on at the time. So I do think there was a massive shift away from Democrats to Republicans that moderated some. But in the polling, it was a massive shift. Call it a 10-point shift, just like the one that Atlas is showing us. And what did we see? We saw I did that stickers on gas pumps. We saw this. Let's go, Brandon. FJB. We saw the election fraud meme, right? The graph. This thing. We saw symbols everywhere of Democrat failure, memes left and right, jokes. People talking at the water cooler about how horrible Joe Biden was and his approval rating plunged. And it wasn't just in one poll. It wasn't just Rasmussen reports. On, the Real Clear Politics aggregate, Joe Biden's approval rating plunged to negative 15 points and pretty much stayed there. We're seeing none of this. We are seeing zero of the signs of a major political realignment in America. None at all. And we're still minting right direction records left and right. So make it make sense. Right direction. Let's look. I'm interested. What was right direction? Let's go to the videotape. All right. Hopefully in our new website, we'll get some better tables. But let's go back up. Let's look at right direction right now. Okay. Look at this. Trump gets into office. This is crazy. It was low during the Biden administration, the high 20s, low 30s. And as we got closer to the election, the number actually went up. I think it's because people got a little bit more inspired by the Democrats, believe it or not. And what was weird is that after the election, right direction, wrong track actually dropped a little bit. Like normally after the election, it changes, it reconfigures. The independent numbers did not shoot up, and Republicans only slowly shot up, and Democrats only slowly petered away. It didn't change until Trump got inaugurated, and then it shot through the roof. This is really incredible. It's almost like people didn't expect it to happen. Like people had so little trust in the federal government that they're like, you know what? I'm going to wait and see until Trump gets in office before I allow myself to relax. And relax they did. 46, 45, 46, 48, 45, 45, 45. This 48, first time positive. Then 46s, 47s, 2 full weeks in a row of net plus 0, another net plus 1, and now a net plus 2, and we had a net plus 4 and a net plus 5 overnight. And for the first time, an overnight, I say overnight, it was a daily result, N equals 2,000 poll, massive poll. A majority of voters said the country was headed in the right direction, and yet Democrats are up 9. I can't explain to you the level of dishonesty, a lack of intellectual dishonesty it takes to know what you know about the industry and about politics in America, and with a straight face put out a poll like that and give millions of people the incorrect impression of what's happening with a very paper thin explanation. Oh, we were going to go back to Joe Biden. That's right. Let me find the year. This is 22. This is 21, January 21. Okay. So we're in 21. Right direction got super low, 23% on January 6th, 21% the week following, 24, 35 on inauguration, 38, 37, 41. Joe Biden hit a few 41s in the spring. Probably more related to COVID. He hit a 42 in May. That was his highest. I'm pretty sure this 42's right here. That was as high as he got. Underwater 9 points. That was the peak. And then here it is. 39, 39, 39, 37, July 25th, 32, August 1st, 35, 34, 33, 34, 32, 30, 29, 30, 27, 30, 26. You know, this is what happened. Right direction tanked. People were unhappy with the leadership. Right direction's not tanking right now, and so people are not unhappy with the leadership. If you've learned something, please follow us at rasmussenreports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter, and thanks for watching.